item 1, apologies for absence. I think we've only received one from Ronnie.
Correct, yeah. And then Councillor Felton has resigned.
So again, if you can minute it, we'd like to pass on our thanks to Councillor Thornton for all her hard work as well on the committee and council. Two, disclosure of interests.
I have submitted.
It doesn't. What we're talking about doesn't apply to you, so you can declare an interest, but that's fine for you to state because it doesn't apply to you. The item on 19 is literally to do with one amendment to one thing, so you're all welcome to stay.
Does that apply to me?
It doesn't
Yes,
apply
it
to
does.
Richard,
It doesn't apply to you, I'm afraid.
Would you like me to stay and listen in?
No.
Because you're going to have to tell me what.
You have to find out anyway. You'll declare an interest in that topic.
Right, okay.
Yes. Any other disclosure of interest?
Well, just for a recommend.
That doesn't, yes. This one doesn't apply to you either, but thank you for that as well. Item 3 then, public questions. Member of the public may ask questions, make recommendations. 10 minutes. Total may be necessary, be limited. Time allotted to each person because standing orders for each year.
Yes, I have got standing item correspondence has been removed from the agenda. I'm just wondering why.
So which one? The
Correspondence, there's no correspondence on the
no
agenda.
correspondence is because now all the councils receive all the correspondence. So therefore we don't need to be told what's on the correspondence because we get it all.
No, but it's a standing item so that the public actually sees what happens, and it wasn't discussed that it was going to be removed.
Okay.
You know, because the public do use that correspondence as a guide to what's going on within the parish council. So it's been removed, so it's not there
Okay.
for
Can you have that
visibility.
It's still there.
No, it's
Not as a list,
not as a list of.
and it's quite useful for us to keep track.
No, they're not.
No, so it was an item on the agenda, so yes.
And a second question. The cemetery committee has no meetings scheduled until April. There are 2 fallen trees. The original tree behind the notice board after Storm Irwin, which happened in November, plus a second bigger tree further down over the pathway, which fell in January. Having put up an initial warning notice for the public, the cemetery as of last week is closed. We have an agenda item 11 on this agenda, tree works for Riverside, to agree necessary works and quotes, etc., etc. But for the urgent trees in the cemetery, there's nothing listed on this agenda. To help with future decisions, would the Parish Council consider adding an extra line to the description of item 8, the update for committees and working groups, which would allow for discussions to be made and actions made if required. It's you know, there are things which come up from different committees and groups. So if just that sentence, appropriate sentence, was added, then it would be able to be discussed and actioned at the monthly committee meetings.
Any thoughts?
I don't think so, because I don't think it would be. I think it would be too general. Because I think it would be a bit like having any other business, because it would just be about committees and actions arising. It wouldn't specify.
You have an
problem I have
urgent-
is we can discuss it. We couldn't take an action on it because we can only take actions, from my understanding, on things that we've listed in the agenda.
No, but
We've got to take-
that's what I'm saying, that if you have an urgent item, as I would say those 2 trees are, and have been for a while, that if you put, you could put a sentence that just relates to an urgent item.
You
That
can't
relate
have,
to-
you can't have urgent items.
Well, or a decision.
Items are handled out of the committee anyway.
Or the company, yes.
And they are, in this sense, they are in action, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's do about that. You've got estimates? We've got estimates, but the item on the 11 only references Riverside, it doesn't reference the cemetery. So,
The cemetery committee.
any other thoughts? I mean, we can't take a vote on it now anyway, we'll have to go on the next agenda, but my personal idea is we can, but yes.
In this particular case, with the trees in the cemetery, one of us should have made sure that Claire did get it on the agenda, I would have thought. And it's a bit of an admission of council.
It's a cemetery committee matter.
But with
So why are we even talking
Cemetery
about
committee's
it?
been dealing with just problem with getting people to do the work and also the estimates, which we've got estimates for.
But that's all cemetery committee business.
Yes.
So it's nothing to do with this, the main
Well,
council.
we report to you, yes, because we're a separate group, we're still subsidiary of the Parish Council.
Okay, so you didn't need a decision.
Well, we have an estimate out there. We've been discussing it, the Cemetery Committee.
Okay.
But with respect, there was one tree cut down after Storm Irwin, but the second tree behind the notice board wasn't cut down. And
That was
and with respect, then when the second trees come down, they are extremely urgent matters. They are a danger to the public.
We appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. But when you can't get anybody to work and you get told there's a 3-month waiting list for tree surgeons, where do you go to from there?
And there was a miscommunication about the one that was
Yes, there was a
cut down.
miscommunication.
That one shouldn't have been cut down, and the other one should.
Should have been cut down, yes.
Okay, does anyone want that added as an agenda item for the next meeting then to add that line, or are we happy with the way we've got it at the moment? Shall I post it? Okay, as it is. Anything else from me?
Chair, yes, you made reference to the fact that you would thank Councillor Dixon at the last meeting,
Yes?
Have I not put it
but there's nothing in the minutes.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there's a mention of a casual vacancy.
No.
Apologies for
No,
absence.
61.
Read apologies for
Right at the
absence.
start.
Oh, sorry, I didn't read that. Sorry. Sorry.
It was right at the beginning.
Oh, sorry, I missed that.
Which is where the thanks will go for Councillor Felton as well. Right, minutes of the previous meeting. To approve the correct record of the meeting held on the 7th of February, pages 3 to 6. Any comments on those, please?
Just an amendment to 164D, which is about the Southview Working Group meeting that was held. Just to amend the last sentence, following the site meeting, and I've written between County Council, Councillor Thornton and Mrs Kazuja, it should read between County Council and the Southview Working Group.
Okay.
Because they were all actually all in.
Happy with that. Anything else? So with that amendment, can I have a show of hands if you approve the minutes, please? Thank you very much. Finances, 5A, to receive the financial statement and budget monitoring document, pages 7 to 10. So any comments on those? This is basically just receiving them, so there's nothing to vote on, but any comments? Anybody? Is that one I did have one myself. Income, the Felton Cemetery Joint Committee.
Yeah.
We're expecting 3,800 already on 1950. Is this late payments from the other councils again, and are we going to be in the problem where...
I don't think we'll be the problem we are, but they know about it and they are.
Right. Those ones where they were late paying last year, it just causes us all sorts
Although
of
if they pay early
problems.
this year, we'll have double pay this year, so it depends which one to do, doesn't it?
Yes.
I just wondered why we're still paying for Zoom.
I think we've taken that out now, so that should just be, that shouldn't be getting any higher, that cancelled it. I think in November it got cancelled.
But obviously has to remain on there for what we paid so far for the year, for the previous
You
year.
can't take it off the figures.
Anybody else? Anything else on that? Okay then, page 11 to authorise the payments that are listed on page 11. Before we take a vote on it, does anybody have any comments on that?
What was the correct figure for January?
It is because I think the dates have changed slightly with the new payroll system. So when I put it through when I reported it last time, and then she sent me my payslip, she'd included. It was where my hours fell basically. So when I put them into her system, her payroll was for a slightly different window from the one I had previously calculated. So that's why. But it should even out. So now, again, this month, she's now taken me to the 10th of the month. It's just how it falls on her system.
Oh, I see.
So what I've done is,
You don't do it now, no,
so
sorry,
I
sorry,
had reported it.
I forgot that.
I had reported it and then I put it through her system and then it came out for different amount. I
Yes,
think that should be the only time it happened.
Because there was one payment was rather low. I did notice that. I just thought it was the same many hours.
If no comment, can I have a vote? Happy to authorise those payments as listed there. Thank you very much. 5C, to resolve that the Parish Council apply to Lloyds Bank for the issue of a business debit card for the clerk as an authorised user and for use according to the financial regulations. This was basically put off because we wanted to A, see if we could reduce the limit, which we can,
Yeah.
and B, to see which group came within its business, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
So she says if we just put in the covering letter what we want to set the limit at, then they will apply that onto the system.
do you remember what we said we wanted the limit at?
Is it 250?
I mean, I can't see ever needing more than that.
I think the discussion went along the lines of there was only a certain amount that you could pay without having to go back to the parish council.
That's right, yes, that's right. I thought it was £100 actually.
Can't be.
It was too good.
I had a feeling it was too
Yeah, I thought
good.
it was 200 or 250.
If you set the limits too low, does it make the card pointless to have it? Because if the limit's high, you can have a higher card limit, but then an understanding that if you were going to use it for anything over a certain level, you'd have to get authorisation.
No, you've got to put the limit to stop anybody not getting
Running away with the money.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not getting far on 200 quid with that.
No, but it was a high limit, that's what we had that.
We've got the debit card is is limited to a single transaction value of £500 in the regulations, and that also does match with the emergency spending levels, because it says in extreme risk of delivery to council services we can authorise expenditure up to £500 and report back. So it would make sense to put it at that thing. I promise I won't spend it.
I would just add that several times for minor purchases for the rec field
I quite agree.
have been over 150 several times.
So, the question is then, now we know that we can reduce the limit to £500 and that we're classed as a business, are we happy that we apply for a debit card for use by the clerk? All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Is it a business account or a treasurer's account?
I think it is a treasurer's account. But I did ask them, I rang them and asked them what to put it through as.
I thought
The treasurer's account has.
I've only seen someone, I thought it was
It is a treasurer's account.
Well,
Tomorrow.
he wasn't, he couldn't have authorised it himself.
but he didn't, yes, I agree. Where are we? 6A, to review the progress and to, Felton survey, to review progress and to agree any action required.
So I'm going to just give an update, the latest situation with the plan, which we're waiting to agree. If you remember, the latest one we've been sent is effectively the one we'd originally seen, which was the red outline with the blue hatched area in the middle. There was a gap between the red line and the blue hatched area, and I spoke to the solicitor to explain that. He had it in front of him, he could understand what I was saying, and he's going to go back and ask them why.
Basically, we want them to write to them and confirm that we will get the northern and western extent
and he
of Bellways.
he understands that now, yeah.
Yes. So that's what we want. Just for other information,
What happened about the request to write with that question?
well, that's
I've asked the solicitor's doing it, because he's going to go to their solicitor about it.
so Claire's going to, Claire's going to get the solicitor to write to them.
They
to
should already.
confirm, or should have written,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
confirm, as you saw with that email I sent to you, that we are getting the northern and western boundaries of Bellway for that
Well,
business.
the point is, on the western boundary, Chair, I'm sure the hedge will be part of the land, which is not just, which is normal in land deals. I've seen that, but the thing is, when Bellway bought that land off Thompson, or Thompson sold it to them, the hedges would go with it. I'm pretty certain, unless that hedge, when the road was altered, became a highways hedge.
Well, what we're asking is we get all their land.
So I've just, yeah, I said that we want all of basically we want the full corner from Bellway. We don't want the corner less little alleyway.
Which you mean little alleyway?
Well, at the moment that gap.
It was all like Ransom.
Yeah.
There's a gap there.
No, not that, it's within. It's not showing on there.
It's basically just within that bit.
Yeah.
So in other words, but you see the point is on the northern edge, there is all the little bits here.
Yes, we know that, but
You which you can't do anything.
no, we can't do anything about that. But as long as we get all the
Everything
Bellway,
that Bellway can transfer to us.
yes, on the western and the
That
northern.
appears to be an original line.
Just also for information, because of the previous one from Bellway, I'll just show this up. This is the previous one from Bellway, which included that and that footpath there.
Yeah.
I've got a meeting tomorrow with Dale from NCC, who were part of the people taking over, and he's hopefully going to come and review what they've taken over and explain to me why they didn't take over that bit of footpath.
And he knows what they've taken over, doesn't he?
Well, I'm sure he does.
This is about the adopted pathways.
Yes.
Excellent.
So we'll find out a bit more about that as well.
As I explained to you in the email, about the paths.
Yeah, that's at 13:30. Sorry, that's at 13:30. If anybody else wants to attend, yes.
How many? Sorry,
13:30. Meeting at the lay-by.
Thing is, the county council never take over footpaths, never own footpaths. But the point is that what they've adopted is part of the footpath
Yes.
structure of the site.
Yes. No. What the original alteration when they put this site in, there was
Yes.
the path that went. Sorry, I'll hold it the right way. There was the path that went through there,
That's right.
and it was agreed to reroute it along there. So, but they've adopted that part of it, which is part of the public footpath, but they've not adopted that part of it. So why have they?
No,
happy to adopt?
they've adopted this part.
No, they've not adopted that at all. That bit, that's the last bit. That hasn't been adopted. They have adopted up to about there. I think they were in adopted that, yes. And that's what I can't understand. But if they either don't adopt any of the public footpath according to what was altered, or they adopt it all. And on their plan was to adopt it all. They stopped there.
Yes, I can understand that, yes.
Yeah. So I've got a meeting tomorrow, which will hopefully.
But I'm saying the bit they've adopted are part of the structure, appearance structure of the site. Up to there. That is part of the appearance structure of the site.
Yes.
This bit isn't.
But on their plan, that was to be adopted as well, because that's part of the.
And who's that?
Well, the NCC plan on their website, when it was up for the footpaths and what was to be adopted.
I don't believe what county council put on that mark, on that plans on website, because I'm going to tell you now, we've had battles galore for years with county council on these issues.
That's fair enough, but well, that's not what we're expecting. So I just wanted to find out why. So that's 13:30. 13:30 with Dale tomorrow afternoon. Meeting at the lay-by, and then we'll walk up.
And is he a highways officer?
Yes.
Is that the same man that's dealing with the charging points?
No,
No.
it's not. Different thing.
I know it's a different thing, but the same man could be dealing with it.
No.
So I don't think there's any actions from 6A, is there?
Unless
at
we
the
haven't had any
moment?
more update from the CCG or anything.
No, nothing else. We did have a reply, just for information, we had a reply from the CCG or NCC, you know, saying when we asked what was happening in the doctor's surgery, and the initial reply from the doctors was they were waiting for a new practice manager. And the latest reply, what was the latest reply from there? Because it wasn't quite practice, it was a slightly different term, wasn't it?
It wasn't, I can't remember, there's been so many.
Chair, there's been that many excuses for this surgery, for why it's not progressive, it's an absolute disgrace. To start with, we were talking about planning, then they're talking about materials, lack of supply of materials, and every excuse imaginable. Why, if it would only give us a straight answer, it would be far easier.
We'll have the merging of the practices as well.
Hmm?
The merging of the practices.
Well, that was the other thing, that was the thing, yes.
That was it, the merger, yes.
Yes, that was.
Now that the merger has gone ahead, they can proceed.
They haven't got a practice manager.
No.
Oh,
Yes, they have.
oh, they have.
Oh, yes, they have.
So I don't think there's any actions
No.
required after that, but the 6B, even if the survey doesn't go ahead, do we as a parish council still wish to accept the transfer of the land?
I thought we already agreed that.
I thought we had.
I thought, did we definitely agree? Yes. Okay, fine.
I thought we had, that's why.
We did talk about offering it to an alternative service.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
fine, that's fine. I just wasn't sure and I thought I'd put it on and then I missed. Okay, sorry for that.
The, so if we get agreement from Bellway that they are definitely going to transfer the whole of the northern and the whole of the western, I don't think there's much we can do about that triangular bit. I think we're going to have to adopt it. Whether it's adopted or not, we're going to have to take it on.
Whether the surgery, that's a different
It's a different matter. But I think we're going to have to take it on. But what I'd like to know now is if we get an agreement from Bellway that they are giving us the whole of the northern and the whole of the western, are we happy on those terms to proceed with the transfer? All those in favour? Thank you very much. So at least we can get that done.
On the proviso that there's not a ransom stream.
That's it, that's what I said, provided we get the
As
whole
long as we
northern
get
and the whole western.
Up to the top, yeah.
Yeah, as long as we get all the Bellways.
Well, there is a ransom strip.
Yes, the north.
Yeah, but it's not Bellway's
But it's
one.
not Bellway's ransom.
So, yes, Bellway's have ransom strip there as well.
Yeah, but we're saying if we can,
They
Get
have,
rid
to,
of theirs.
they have to give us everything up to their boundaries.
Where?
Bellway have ransom strip there, along there.
No.
Strip.
There's the fence line that we've got out beyond that.
Yes, but these told us on the last meeting we had, that bit there is theirs, that bit there is Thompson's, and that bit there is Patterson's.
So what we've asked for is the whole northern extent. So we've asked for that.
This is.
I don't know, but these are the ransom strips on here, and we were told categorically by Bellway's people that that's what those 3 strips were.
I'm saying that is Bellway's.
It should be taken out. So we're happy that provided we get the whole of the northern, whole of the western.
But if it's right, fair enough, that's what we were told when we were talking about this initially.
That's why we're saying, that's why we're asking this confirmation that we get the whole of the northern extent. Has anybody heard anything from County Councillor Thorne? Have we received any emails? So nothing this month from.
Just to give you an update on Councillor Thorne's quirky attitude, I had a phone call from the lady.
you're not writing this, sorry.
I don't know, I'm right. I can always
Good.
The point is, the email we got tonight about the charging points, which Claire refers to as.
Yeah.
The lady spoke to Councillor Thorne, and Councillor Thorne told her to speak to me. The lady spoke to me and I said, this isn't Parish Council responsibility, this is County Council responsibility. So I phoned Trevor Thorne, this is what's going on here. Well, it's your responsibility. I said, no, it's not our responsibility. It's your responsibility. It's County Councillor. It's the County Council's responsibility. Oh, do you think so? I said, definitely. So, and we had a chat with other things as well, and he said, oh, well, I suppose I better do something about it.
Well, it's dealt with now anyway.
That's what he said to me.
that's just how he would say it.
It's dealt with anyway. I think John has kindly pointed her in my direction. I scanned a copy of the letter. So for the benefit, we got a letter, had a phone call from a resident who has received, it's actually just a circular from Octopus Energy relating to the EV charge points. But because they've used her address describing the location of the charge points, it has been delivered to her house, posted to her house as a correspondence address, which is clearly not correct. So I sent it to Matt Baker. He said, you're quite right, this is not correct, I will resolve this.
They actually had her MPAN number on the
The
document as well, which
yeah.
so
So I've said it's not acceptable because obviously there's a number of issues. First of all, it's not just not accurate. If it's a location address, it should be different from the correspondence address.
Somebody told me.
Can I, thank you very much, but that's not actually to do with this, it's completely separate. I want to get the meeting moving on. Thank you very much. 8, update from committees and working groups as required. I'll come on to one of them in a minute. So, do we have any other updates from committees and working groups?
Well, the rec committee met.
That's all we can
Right.
say. We met.
We met and there's been action on various things. In the play park, the rear fence has been retensioned, straightened, and the old bolt holes sewn up. Looks a lot smarter. The east side fence reinstated with poles courtesy of Councillor Crudden. The west side hedge has been cleared of its overgrowth for the whole length, and the fence repaired. What else? Around the wreck, the encroaching brambles and rough grass on all 3 sides has been cut back. The contracts will keep that cut back as well. We're also considering the state of the football pitch and whether we go to the nuclear option of ploughing it up, levelling it and starting again. Considering not action on it because it is really wavy at the moment, especially if you see it in the first thing in the morning with the sun level across it, it looks terrible.
Rebarred as well.
We lost a few pines over the east side that fell into the adjacent field and squashed the fence, but we managed to go and just saw them up and chuck them back into our side. And then we have the Wreckfield Regeneration Working Group who have put in hours and hours. If they would care to comment where we got to with that.
So yeah, we've got the regeneration plan put together with some basic funding planning. We've got Carolyn Reynolds on board to actually start doing some funding applications for us. And the Wreckfield committee voted to, what's the correct wording for it? Give responsibility to Claire to start putting out a tender for such projects.
And I've been tendering for we're starting off with the mover surface and fences as the so we've sort of split up to phases. The first phase is the all-weather court, and then possibly a standalone toilet. We're looking at off-grid toilets. There's some really good options now, waterless and off-grid in terms of power. I've had some really good conversations with a couple of companies, one of whom has installed a waterless off-grid toilet at Dunstable Castle for English Heritage. That seems to be so successful that I was speaking to them and they say that there's going to be adding to them, putting some more in there because it's been really well received and well used. I'm gathering the information. There's various, because it depends which type you get as to what servicing they need. So some of them are really very low maintenance, but still meet the capacity we need. The only proviso is that you just would have to, I think we'd have to be careful about the time of the fair to make sure that the toilet at that point had capacity to take the additional traffic, which it should. They were all quite confident that they would provide what we needed. So those projects are going on. We are, Gemma's going to keep nagging me and we're going to work to push it forward because the funding is available this year. There's lots of funding this year with COVID and various other things, but there will not necessarily be the same levels of funding available next year.
And we will be putting out some plans for public consultation in the near future. We've also had an invitation from the fair to have a stall, which would enable us to do some public consultation there as well, and which would be a kind of easy way to get it done very rapidly and reach a lot of people in the community. So.
Sounds very exciting. Have I missed something somewhere? Because it would be quite useful to have a little outline of what you're planning.
Oh, we can have a copy of the project. It's on the website.
Because I've not seen it.
Yeah,
I don't know if you any questions.
it went to the rec field.
Good thing I
I will send it around.
Sounds great.
Sorry, and just there was, I heard John mention before, we are looking at new suppliers for bark, because I've sort of hit a lot of dead ends. John was able to go and he picked up a couple of dump bags very short notice for us, ordered them, got them collected the next day from a company in, did you say Ashington? No,
Travis Wilkins
Yeah.
in Blythe.
So that was good, so we put those under the junior swing and the basket swing, which were the two urgent places, but we are...
They did say that they could do a bulk delivery. It would probably still come in dumpy bags for ease their end, but there'd be a considerable discount if we ordered a lot.
Yeah. And given the fact that we keep, the national companies I'm contacting, you just sort of don't seem to get anywhere really with them, so I think going with someone that's local, it's can obviously provide the goods.
Well, I mean, if you can get it in dumping bags, you don't have the reach.
Pass it on.
Yes, and there could be parts straight into
Yeah.
the clay pot.
Well, because otherwise you just end up paying on a huge delivery cost, so...
Well, the thing about the dumpy bags is that it's just about movable by hand, you see, so we can save time and cost. So it might be worth spending a little bit more to get them that way.
Yeah. It was much easier than barrowing it in, because you could just effectively take them when you wanted to.
Well, the lorry will drop them into the clay pot.
Yeah.
Okay, drop them at a few points.
Anything else on the, sorry, Richard?
The Biodiversity and Climate Change Committee has not met formally yet. It keeps nearly happening and isn't quite happening. We will need to have a short formal meeting. Matt Baker at NCC is masterminding a new warm home scheme, which is targeted at families, household incomes below 30,000 or people on benefits, to deal with insulation, alternative heating and solar panels, so the whole sort of gamut. They got £9.5 million to spend, and he said that he would like Felton to be one of the villages where it was implemented. So after, I suppose, 3 or 4 months since we originally wrote to him before Christmas, he's come back and said, can you organise a meeting for us in April? So it's going to be May, because it's not really going to be particularly easy to do that. There will be, the idea is that their team will meet with traders or tradespeople from the area. So they want to encourage all the work to be done by, not by big national firms, but by local tradespeople. So they obviously need to brief them and interview them and so on. And they want to talk to residents. So at the moment, the plan would be, in my head at least, that we have one half a day when both constituents meet up with the NCC team. And we also take the opportunity to talk to residents who come in about the Biodiversity and Climate Change Committee and other sorts of things that they want to do. So that's where we're at the moment, and I think I need to work with Claire to have a little meeting so that we can say, these are the dates, this is the budget we'll need for a bit of advertising for the whole rental and so on.
Thank you.
There's an article, or a bit of an article, I hope, part of Lindsay's input to the bridge.
Your paragraph I forwarded
Yeah.
and requested that just tacked on.
Thank you.
The South View Oval, yes, I was just going to say the South View Oval, we've obviously the chair resigned of that. We haven't had a meeting to elect another chair, but a member of the public have been doing a lot of work on that, and if they'd like to just update the committee on that, please.
Yeah, we had the meeting with NCC for the South View sort of replan. That was hopefully going to be with us by the end of January, February, but we've had nothing, and I've obviously written just to sort of check in and had no response. Also the same sort of with the lay-by working group. The idea was that we were going to try and get a survey done, so again I checked in with that group, with the chap there from NCC, and no reply. I've copied in Trevor Thorne on all of the emails, just so that keeping him in the loop. And I've also, on the NCC website, found that the local traffic plan document has been published. It hasn't been formally agreed yet. So the document itself is sort of in different sections, but on the listed sections where things are definitely going to ahead, we are not listed on the LTP. But they have sections in there that are classed, that are written in such a way as other locations are listed as various countrywide. So I've asked Trevor if we are listed in those. So at the moment, it looks like we are not listed officially, but we may be sort of hidden in one of those various countrywide lists. So it's obviously disappointing, but obviously, realistically, we knew that all we were going to expect from the lay-by element was a sort of a grant process. But we'd had hoped that the oval, since that was already, sort of done and dusted in effect, or all that's needed for that is implementation. We really thought that was going to go ahead. So that's.
Thank you. Any other groups? There's which brings on to 9 parish representative meetings. We don't need to discuss it because that's obviously we discussed that in the other one we've met and things like that. But is there any representation at any other meetings? Any members of council? No. 10, standard, the update from Northumbria Police. The standard, there have been no crimes reported in the Felton area between the 15th of February and the 9th of March, which would have a wider community impact. It's interesting, if you go onto that website that we said before, which shows you some of the crimes in there. Every time we've had this, there's been no crimes reported, that website does show that sort of crime. So when you go back and say, why is this saying?
The wider community impact, isn't it? It's a kind of catch-all.
But it also, they come back with their standard comment, which we had the last time, that they can't discuss ongoing matters. They are prohibited from discussing ongoing matters. The fact it goes to the website is out of their control. Somebody else is doing that, but they physically are not allowed to discuss ongoing matters or discuss locations.
You don't want ongoing matters.
One price, it doesn't say where or how, it's just a number.
A crime green.
But they say they can't do that.
Of course they can.
So, I emailed it from their sergeant in charge, saying, no, I've instructed my people they can't do that.
This was at the town
So, would it be more useful to us to put...
No, because the website's 1 month out of date, 1 or 2 months out of date, so we can't just go onto the website and look for this month, but we can go next month and look for this month if you see what I mean.
Well, maybe that's what we could add, but if it's saying it's ongoing, could they backdate this rather than giving us a report? Could they say, you just see what I mean?
Yeah. But do we want, is that
We want up to date, we don't want back
No, but what I mean is that they could give us a wider period. Could they report on anything from the last 3 months? Because then that might catch the ongoing matters which have concluded.
I can ask for that if people want that.
Well, it does seem a bit pointless if they just say no crimes. When
I mean, they always have reported some crimes in the past that have been dealt with, but if there's something ongoing, so like I say, they said there's nothing to affect the wider community. Take that with a pinch of salt.
Well,
And you've got the community engagement van coming.
That visited on Friday.
yeah.
I was unfortunately away. I was expecting them to be able to went.
And you received the local sergeants moving on.
Yes. But hopefully get them moving on.
Hopefully we might get more cooperation.
Item 11. Tree works. To agree any tree works required at Riverside, quotes and circulation.
It is, but I'm going to take it back off because Tony pointed out to me, and Anne did as well, that it is an NCC tree, and I went down and it definitely it's on their side, so that's now being somewhere in their system.
Is that the tree that?
It's come down onto the ramp, yeah. It is already the one that had already dealt with.
Because that's the one you're going to claim on county council for grant as well, aren't you?
Yeah, well, I don't, yeah.
So we don't need to worry about that.
No.
Okay. 12A, Queen's Jubilee, to consider a request from the Village Hall Jubilee Garden team to pay for a seat for the refurbished Jubilee Garden. The team has purchased a quantity of bulbs and tomatoes at the expense of the Village Hall. The WI has purchased a rose and a plaque, and the team is asking for a plant donation from residents. When the garden was set out, a hard standing was created and the seat installed. This is no longer there. We love this to provide a quiet spot for contemplation and reflection. The bespoke seat has been discounted, but an off-the-shelf one, well, it's been discounted, but an off-the-shelf one with metal legs could be purchased for £200. So I think they're looking for, I don't know if it's on the whole £200. My thought is if we did this, if we didn't want to do the oak tree, we could make this the contribution from the Parish Council, or the Council of the Whole, have a plaque there on behalf of the Parish Council. For the Queen's
Chair, do you want a fourth seat?
That's what they would like.
But that, I think
It's,
the
it's
idea
not down in that area,
No,
it's
no,
on the top.
Well, I know because the seat that was there was in memory of a couple who used to live in the village, almost next to Richard's house, Jim and Mary Tate. And Jim Tate was treasurer of the village hall for about 20 years.
But well, that's a good question. I think it would be a nice thing that what they've got is 3 seats at the front, which have a look out the road. People can sit there and chat. What they'd like is a seat in the garden area where people can relax and just contemplate and look at nature.
Chair, the last time there was a seat there, why the seat was busted? Because the youths of the village were jumping on it and jumping on it going into the cemeteries.
Okay.
How do you police it? Because the police didn't know anything about it at the time. It was the skateboard issue. What, running up that plank so onto the seat and up and down on the seat with the
Okay,
skateboard.
but can't guarantee. Is that a reason to say no at the moment?
And if I can also just throw into the mix, if you, Suzanne did send me an email after asking this, to say they also would like to support, they would like our support to give a gift to
Claire, keep your hand away from yours.
a gift to all the children at the parish, at the school. They would be hoping to give them a commemorative coin in a wallet on the last day of term at a total cost of £125.35. I did send that round, obviously. So I think what I don't want is obviously you keep that in your heads, because obviously you might not want to support this if you're also supporting that.
In terms of the coins, I remember our children getting these same things years ago. The children say, oh, chucked in the back of a cupboard, never to be seen again.
I'd rather spend the money on a skateboard around Paris.
Yeah, me too.
The coins mean nothing to children.
They don't.
I
No to mugs, and that's the other alternative that a lot of people go for.
would rather go for the seat.
Yeah,
My personal
I still want a tree.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
The trees aren't very expensive. I had a look with the help of a friendly resident, and I'm looking at him. I'm looking at the chairman because he's has a connection to her. She did find me a couple of options for the trees. I know it's 2 items, but it helps if you've got the figures in your head. So you're looking at for a tree which is between 150 and 200 centimetres, so 1.5 to 2 metres tall, in a 10-litre pot. That is £76.94, so just short of £77, including delivery. There would be VAT to pay, but obviously you would pay the VAT back. A smaller tree for about £40 would be 120 centimetres tall. Again, another £8 on top of that for delivery. So I know that John had sort of said if we were going to do it, you want to kind
The
of
biggest one we can get, 2 metres.
So just Lindsay.
Need to be careful on the quality of the tree that's bought, because especially if it's coming from a garden centre, they crop stuff to keep it to their sizes.
Yeah.
And we would want an untrimmed, there is a term for this and I can't remember what it is.
I know what you mean, Lindsay, I've heard tell of this myself.
So what you're getting, we want to buy the first class version with an undamaged trunk.
Have you made inquiries at Woodland Trust?
I did have a look at them. I can't remember. I did get. I haven't written out their information down. I had a look.
I don't want to. He's a friend of mine. I don't want to recommend him because I don't want to abuse my position. But the Woodland Burial Ground have all of the equipment to transplant a mature tree. So basically, they come along with the tractor, the tree spade out, a big hole, go off and get the tree, and I'm pretty sure they have oak trees for sale. And then they come back and put it in, which means it can be planted at the correct time of year, because we're sort of losing the window for planting trees. And you can get a really good quality tree without having to pay, carbon centre prices. And and it would be installed by somebody who knows what they're doing.
And climatically similar to where it's come from.
Well, yes, it'll be the other side.
And it's a local business.
And it's a local business, and they know what they're doing, and their equipment that they've got, you'll get, a good specimen tree. You won't get.
What sort of price will they come in at?
Well, when you ask the question back, and I can look into that if you want me to.
I would support Councillor Cruton's recommendation, which I thought we'd already discussed
We did discuss
at a previous meeting. I don't see the point of buying a 1.5 or 2 metre tree. It'll probably die next year. But if we get a mature tree that's decent size,
We'll come on to that in a second.
everybody
Let's
will
go
have
back.
forgotten the Jubilee by the time it's
Because we haven't had a quote for that one. So to go back to the seat, bespoke seat. Does anybody have anything to say on that?
What are all the choices you're going to offer?
No, they've chosen the seat.
Well, have they? Because it just says with metal legs, it doesn't say anything more about the size of the seat or anything.
it's off somebody's shelf.
But we could, I guess, if the council's happy to make a donation of up to a certain amount, then that could go towards it, wouldn't it? Or
Well, but the thing is, we've got to look at the cost of the trees well first.
This one would come out of donations, and if you look at our accounts, we've got £500 donations, of which we've only spent 50 or £60. So we've got a lot of money in our donations. £500, we've spent £50, and the year end is coming to an end soon.
So in other words, what you're saying, the trees are going to be spent
Well,
this
the
year.
tree is not going to come out of donations, is it? That's going to come out of, because we're not donating that money
to somebody else.
Yeah,
to somebody else.
fair enough. Yeah.
Is my argument. I don't assume we
Do both.
This is a donation which comes out of our donations. They're looking for £200.
Which isn't our money, in effect.
Yeah,
It's been donated.
it's been donated.
If we have donation money to spend before the end of the year, it's a fairly good cause.
Yes. So, anybody anything? So yes.
Could we try and match, rather than have metal legs, could we try and match the style of the seats further down so that we've got some sort of continuity from a design perspective?
If we're donating the money, that's not up to us.
True, but we could make it a codicil.
They might want more money though. That might not come in £200.
You can get codicils.
But they haven't said that the seat's metal, have they? They've just said
They've
metal
said
legs,
legs.
which could be the ones that go into the ground, like for.
Yes.
Well, but if they've got a hard standing, you can fasten the seat.
Is it a hard? Are they putting hard standing?
The horse stand is
Oh,
already
okay.
there.
Yes.
If you've got a hard standing, the seat can be fastened to the hard standing.
Can we just donate and forget about it?
I was going to say, if the village hall,
That's a bit all the votes
I
on.
think it's wrong for us to
Donate
dictate
and have a
what sort of
plaque.
seat. They've asked them, they'd like to move towards a seat, and they've got their vision of what they want for their garden.
Yeah, fine.
Yes, I know, but
Very
we, as a parish council and a planning authority, are making recommendations to planning. Do you want nice wood seats there, metal seat, frame seat there?
How do you know it's going to be a word then?
Well, it says metal legs.
Well, they made a decision about metal legs, so they don't rot.
Yeah, it might
Yeah,
be.
but then the wood rots into the metal because it doesn't drain properly, so you've got the same problem because the seat falls through.
They might be beautiful stainless steel legs.
They're
I
not.
shouldn't think so.
Not
It's
at
not for doing, as you said, it's not for doing good.
Let's bring it to the vote. So, all those in favour of us donating £200 for the council to buy, for the village hall to buy a seat?
Wooden seat.
No, a seat. We're voting donating
Yeah.
the £200 for them to buy a seat. Are we happy it's just somebody, we're donating it for a seat?
As long as it doesn't match those plastic plant pots that don't mind.
Right. Yes, it's just a seat.
Is that true? Can we have a clear show of hands? Who's
Just a
in
minute.
favour of giving £200 with no
Request that it was
conditions?
all wood if possible.
If possible.
Yes.
yes, but I don't
You
know.
can get them, I've seen them.
But not for £200.
Yes, you can, I've got one.
Okay.
We would like all, if possible, but you can still have it. All those in favour?
It is tea.
Right, so being clear that we are approving it regardless, but we are requesting that it is wooded if possible.
Yes.
Okay.
Planting the oak tree, then we need to just wait for further quotes. I would suggest.
I'll gather that straight away.
Thank you very much.
And Tony, are you going to inquire into the Woodland Trust, or are we just getting?
No one else asked me, can I do it?
Right.
I did look at them, but I think it was about comparable, to be honest.
Right.
I didn't see
They
those
were offering
prices.
them for nothing at one point.
Yes,
Not-
well,
not-
that's the
not-
thing.
not-
Woodland Trust offer a lot of trees for nothing.
I can check.
To Parish Council.
Yes,
they were
But there's a
offering
big
all
difference
sorts of
between a tree and bare root sapling.
That's exactly what it,
Yeah.
that's what the ones
Yeah.
that we're giving away were very small.
Yeah.
The ones that you got free from the county council this year were incredible.
Mine's dead already.
And are we parking the coins? Do you want it on the agenda to vote on next time, or is it really just nobody wants to support the coins?
I think if
Well, we can't make a
It's
decision
for
now.
a tree.
Put it on the agenda because we
Yeah.
can't make a decision now. And we can.
Where would the tree be planted?
But this is the point when you're buying a mature tree.
does it?
Did we not say? I thought you said
where that small one's come down next to the sycamore at the entrance to Bellway.
So
It's been removed now, but there was a tree that was planted there, and it's quite a prime spot where we've lost one.
Right.
That sycamore's not going to be there forever.
Can you get them to check the land because it's quite bogged there
Okay,
now? So
yeah.
just in terms of the actual tree and sitting in water.
That was another thing which is very great.
Item 13, verge mowing. You've all seen that letter that the Felton have proposed to send to NCC. I'm not sure. Sorry. They're an unelected group and they seem to be making decisions for the majority, well, for the parish without consulting the parish, if you see what I mean. And I know they've sent the letter to us for a group of folk to look at, but it wasn't to say for us to approve or for us to discuss, it's just for us to look at. And basically, they obviously want to wild things. Now, I know we're all ecological and we want to do these things, but they have to be done properly. And just to say you want this area to go to wild, you can't just leave it to go to wild, it still needs to be tended. Their proposal of a 50 centimetre wide mown strip is not wide enough,
No.
especially for people with dog walkers and things like that. So it just, to me, doesn't
I
make
think when
sense.
everything we do has to go through public consultation, I think
Everything they do.
should.
And
And
like-
I know they're not asking for funding for that, but when if it is going to affect people the way it does,
Well, one of the things I do know we get is a lot of complaints from people when it's not mown.
Yes.
People complain to the council about it looking scruffy on the way down. And if you enter a village and it looks scruffy, you're not you don't feel that you want to make any effort to keep that village clean yourself. So all the people that come here walking will just happily throw the litter away because, well, it's scruffy on the way in. This is obviously a scruffy village. Whereas if it looks pretty, I think there's more inclination for people to try and keep it looking pretty.
Chair, can I suggest that all the areas they want to wild within the village parameter are not, they're kept as they are. There's 2 or 3 places they want to do, there's the one, the site between Parkview and Dean Close, and I want to do some between, on the areas.
Yeah, behind the bus stop and the Dean Close.
Yes, they should be kept cut within the parish parameters. That would be my first thought on this, because if we agree, county council, stop them cutting it. If we want it cut at a later date, you'll have to pay for it.
This is my thought exactly, that, you know, they're going to jump at the chance to say, oh,
Oh,
yes,
yes.
save money.
Aye.
I think we need to contact county council to see if they've actually already got a policy on this.
They do have a policy on it, yes.
No, because if they are declaring a climate emergency, they must have something which is about rewilding and maintenance of wild sites.
It's up to them.
Or asking them to have something. And if that isn't something that's already in their thought process, something that should be, because especially if it's a trial scheme, I think they need to have a reversion plan as well in place. And I think that's something, if we could ask them about that, about what happens if this isn't working for our village, about what reversion is, because they've declared a climate emergency, and I think this is something that we should be definitely looking at and something we should be attempting to support. But Northumberland County Council should be having a strong point for it.
So I have a lot of emails. If Claire gives one of the biodiversity group
Yeah.
emails to contact, can one of you write to the appropriate people in NCC just with these concerns and questions?
Yeah.
Before we...
Thank you very much. Can you provide that email contact?
Chair, I think we should be contacting the County Council, because the cutting is done through us, the Parish Council.
I think that's what you suggested.
But it's through our biodiversity group, effectively.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think the principle of trying to introduce more biodiversity is good if it can be done practically. So it's not squeezing people off the verges and dog walkers and all the rest of it. It's something we should welcome because it will improve insects and pollination and all the rest of it, and it will look very nice.
It would look very nice at the wrong time, is what
Please
the
don't
council said.
interrupt, Councillor Hood.
It looks very nice if it's properly maintained.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it doesn't have to go
properly
to
maintained.
brambles
Well-
and you get the proper wildflowers. But my concern is that their plan doesn't say they're going to maintain
Well,
it.
no, well, that's what we need to examine.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, if you drive into Blythe looks fantastic in the spring and the summer because they have bulbs planted, massive bulb plantation,
But it does
and
need a lot of
big
work.
areas of wildflower.
So our biodiversity, if you can provide an email, our biodiversity group will write to council.
Okay.
Half metre unworn strips inside the road, I think it should be 1 metre.
At least.
There's a legal requirement, and I don't know what it is, but
See, I
One
think
is 1.8 metres?
it's 1.5 or 1.8.
there's a legal requirement. So
Yes, I know there is.
so they can't go shorter than that.
But they're suggested to
Yeah.
ignore. And I mean, like if Acton Road End here, you're wanting to reduce the cutting when you need it for vision.
You do, but there is an argument that if you mow things and keep them, I think, is it 10 centimetres, you get something like 300% of biodiversity as if you have it cut down to 5 centimetres. And that length, when you're talking about having something at that length, that isn't going to affect visibility and things. It's just setting the mowers at a higher point, which obviously then you can argue they have to go more often and things, which is the whole balancing act when we're talking about climate change and biodiversity. But I think it's something that needs to be explored further, and it's something that we need to have public consultation with, and it's something we need to have communication with County Council about. It's not something we can just give a yes/no answer to what CAN are proposing at the moment. But I'm happy to follow that up.
Thank you. Great. Yes, sorry.
Well, it was just about the north end there. It's actually cut by a non-NCC person on top of the NCC cuts for the visibility. I mean, I totally agree with everything about height and all of that and management, but there's at least 2 areas that I can think of that are cut by. So
Just build the people.
Well, he just pops out because he doesn't think it's cut often enough, so he does it himself.
Does himself.
But the other thing is just disappointing that it's not, it was on the agenda and obviously
Or not here.
are not here.
Yes.
It's just very disappointing that they're not here to actually engage with the council. But
Right, item 14, planning to receive a list of ongoing planning matters. You've all seen those by email.
And then there's one that's here as well.
Yes, that's going to just come into that one to vote into here. Unless anybody's got anything, that was just to receive those. I think we've all seen them, haven't we? Most of people have commented on lots of those already. Interestingly, those gaming baskets have already fallen apart.
Yes.
I'll send another email to that effect.
Yeah, so even more likely to cause a blockage in the back of them.
Well, it is backing up. The water's been higher in the background at the bottom of our garden than it has been in the plant. Because we've moved it in, so it comes back up as soon as the water level goes.
It was late now, so I apologise, but next time we'll hopefully have on time. Sorry, item 15, to receive the list of ongoing matters. So you can just receive This, I don't think it's fully up to date, is it?
No, sorry, it was one of those, it No, it went back, it came round just before the last meeting, before the 7th, because it was, and then we rescheduled.
February.
Yes.
Are we talking about the ongoing matters now?
No, it was just, this is just to receive the list. If you want to discuss something, we can't take a vote on it. It was just to say we receive the list one going back.
Yeah.
What do you want? Yeah.
What was the Japanese knotweed on the black field?
Right.
There was an identified area, if you're walking into the field from Wreck Lane on the left-hand side,
Yes.
and I'm just, aware that there's been sort of maintenance done in the area, and I just think we need to get on top of the treatment process for that, especially now spring's here. And wondering if there's anything we can do or anyone we can chase up to get it done. Because it's a technical job, it's not something that we can do ourselves.
Who do you have to contact?
NCC,
John Stewart.
well, NCC did it last time for us, but they attended. I mean, this has been an ongoing, Lindsay will attest to this, it's been an ongoing problem. We've had NCC out a number of times to treat it, and they keep treating it, and then it comes back, and they sort of, a bit tongue-in-cheek, like, oh, this is very persistent knotweed, but they don't seem to manage to resolve it, so I don't know whether we go elsewhere to a different company or whether we keep persisting with
Well,
them.
we've had a company here who did it for 3 years,
Mhm.
and that wasn't a success.
No.
This was a few years ago. I mean, to me, there's some, either they're not doing it properly, or they're saying they're doing it and they're not doing it.
I would say they are missing the right timings through the year.
Yes, take your point.
But is there any way we can, start handling them?
The only way
We don't have a current contract for it.
no, the thing is, I was talking to somebody, 2 years ago now, but if you got to chop knotweed on riversides, and because it's so near to a river course, you can't spray them. And they went along and they inoculated every single plant with the neat, whatever ingredient they were using, which was a very labour intensive thing, which they did with volunteers, and they got rid of it all. But they never missed one stalk, but it's got to be growing for so long before you inoculate it. There's
You
no,
have a right size of stalk.
Yes.
You can cut off, you've got a hollow.
no, you don't cut it off. No, you inject the plant and leave it growing and it kills it down.
Yeah, John Stewart is on.
The thing is, if you cut it off,
You've got that.
it's no effective, it's not effective, seriously.
Well,
This is what this gentleman told me, who had
yeah,
done it.
fair enough. All I would add, I am aware that John Stewart has got the right equipment to do it this year. Just for the record, there's also a patch in the southwest corner by the rig.
Yes, those two bits, those three, one beside the ridge and the one beside the gateway.
Where's the rig, sorry?
The house in the corner.
Oh, right, yes, yeah, we saw that on the walk around.
But we had it at the bottom, on our bottom perimeter, and I don't know how he managed to get rid of it.
You keep spraying it off.
Richard probably just gave it a hard glare and told us to go.
Anything else?
Felton pigs.
The lovely step.
Yes, I was going to say, let's go to the rec committee. Anything else for ongoing matters?
May I just, the Lanehead unofficial parking area, when the working group had a meeting with Trevor Thorne, it was up at that end, and the intention is to put the bird's mouth fencing on that corner and to do some planting. That's to come out of his budget.
I need to remind him of that because it's gone back to people parking.
It's going to be in writing now, isn't it?
In writing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's getting bad because there's obviously a big heavy vehicle there.
And then it started again, hasn't it?
Yes,
Exactly the
it's
same
back
problem.
on it again.
Yeah.
Are we talking about right up by the A1?
Yeah, on that corner where people sort of
It does look next.
Is that NCC or us?
NCC.
And actually may I make a point as well about the bus shelter at Leamington Lane. The last couple of times I've come past from Swollen, that I can see It looks like some sort of roofing through the window, so I think maybe somebody needs to have a look at that one properly.
The roof is gone.
Yeah, but I think it looks different. I have, you know, in going past it, it's been okay looking, but when you look through it, there's something different.
It's
So,
collapsing, yeah, it's just, the roof is disintegrating.
okay, fine. So,
Is that, sorry, geography's not a strong point, is there Lemon Lane the other side of the A1?
Yes. But bizarrely,
It's in our, it's where our
It's the
parish
road up to
is.
Swollen.
So the bush shelter is the
Unused.
half demolished one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that our,
yeah.
Well,
potentially,
it's on our land, it's in our parish.
should that not be fenced off like the one that we crashed into was? Because if someone uses it,
It's not, yeah.
is there a liability on Parish Council for that?
There's no buses stop at it. This is the ongoing. We had originally asked Newton on the Moor School if it could just be
Knocked down.
decommissioned, whatever, removed, sort of thing. And they had wanted to retain it because they said that there was a possibility that buses, could be needed and so on. But we never really resolved that because they don't want to pay for it. They don't want us to get rid of it.
So do we?
I think we need to get rid of it.
We give them
I
choice.
think, yeah.
Let's put it on the agenda for next meeting to vote on whether we get rid of it or not. And if they want to take it over,
Yes, well, the ability.
I will give them notice that we're doing that.
And, yeah, we'll give them notice. Yeah.
Is
Because it's wrong.
there anything that we need to be doing in the meantime, such as the Ramble Riverside where we say it's disclosed?
The last time there was any work done, all the brush was dumped in it.
you can't get, I was going to say, you can't get
So you can't get it.
You can't get it.
sorry, may I bring one more? Just, I believe there's ongoing works with the lodge with NCC, so I think it might be worth contacting NCC to get a better update than I could give you.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Okay, items for next agenda, we've got the coins, we've got the bus shelter,
No, Jubilee, sure.
Jubilee coins, yes,
Yes.
the bush shelter. The tree, hopefully, will have
I've just
an
had
oak.
I've just had a bit of a spanner in the works about the tree. Not a good idea to plant before October because of the mortality rate of the tree once it's transplanted. Is there any in the parish that has been planted for the last 5 years which could be moved? Is there any trees that have been planted in a certain area that could be transplanted?
No, there's one up there already. There's
And
one on the end of
the alternative is they have a birch and an alder tree which can be planted at the right time of year, and they are big enough / small enough to be tree stated. So does it have to be an oak tree? Because it doesn't have to be put back to October. And if it did want to be an oak tree, are there any in the area that you would wish to move?
There weren't more trees.
A hot grown tree can be planted at any time.
Well, it's just about the moisture content of the soil and stuff. And
Is it a platinum birch? Because
Well,
that's-
let's say,
well,
we can't take a vote, we'll have it on the next agenda, so we can
That's not
discuss
that
it.
long away really because
No.
of moving this one back.
I'll move this one back, so we'll discuss
And
it.
it's a late one in the month to a short one in the month anyway. It's a short month anyway.
I'll get some more information about this for the next
Yeah.
John, maybe
Yes.
it's very waterlogged, so
Yeah.
just make sure that he knows that, because I don't know whether the oak would like that.
Um,
The alder would. but-
Just about all those trees that are on the area for
Be good if it's
the
helped to
surgery,
put them
could need replanting, so there's plenty there.
Well, if there is anything there that would do.
I don't know what they are.
Anything else for the next agenda?
I don't know because I think there's quite a movement within the village with regards to supporting vulnerable people from the Ukraine at the moment. And I don't know if we need to have some kind of statement or something along those lines. This is a very rough thought in my head that as the parish council, I mean there's a number of people that are looking to volunteer to taking refugees into their home.
From what I've seen, it seems to be that they don't want rural villages.
Yeah,
at the
well,
moment,
that's
so
what
that's
the
the sort of
government
message,
was
isn't
in
it?
regards previously, but I think we need to be, have some kind of offering of support and things, and to, if that was to come about.
Article for the bridge, which is about to go out shortly.
I mean,
I'm not sure, what's the council been, have to discuss it, yes.
I I imagine we could do some things like if the refugees families resettled in Alnwick, for instance, we could encourage people here to take kids out for day trips or,
Yeah, I
you
think
know, get them to come down and use the rec or the play area and things like that. You know, if they don't want people having accommodation here, I'm not sure how they can stop it, but
no, it's because there's nothing to do with communities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cities really,
Yeah.
it's like Sunderland, Newcastle, places that are big where they can bring together the whole community so that they can have meals and things together, they can school all the children together so they're not immersed in this horrible language diversity.
I mean, I know that they tried to have 3 refugee families which were placed in Apple and that didn't work out. And then they got transferred to Blythe, so it has been trialled. But I think as part of our community, serving our community, a community which is, you know, very upset about what's going on and is already offering support, I think the Parish Council just needs to have a standpoint and all be, you know, prepared to say something. And I think that's worthwhile, having to think about what we'd like to do and put it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
County Council has already committed, I think, to supporting.
Yeah.
I would like,
can I mention the group singers tonight are being asked to vote whether they want to sing in public to raise money.
okay.
So
Is it possible to have a new item 3 and just move everything down and have co-option?
Yeah.
Possible co-option of new members,
Yeah.
because then they can join the meeting.
Yeah, that's what I would usually do for this.
We're hoping, we've definitely had one email which you've seen for one co-option. We're hoping to maybe have another one, and by then that should fall in nicely with the second resignation.
I'm just saying, I've advertised Fiona Felton's vacancy. The deadline for calling an election for that is the 30th, which will miss our agenda but be in time for the meeting. So if County Council are organised and tell me on the Thursday or the Friday, I'll put it on the agenda that we're definitely co-opting 1 vacancy. We'll possibly have 2, depending on whether we're notified of the second one in time. So that if we get interest, we can co-opt a couple.
Yeah. We've certainly had 1 application so far that we can vote on, and if we get any more, we can vote on either.
But it means that we should have 2 bit, like, so if we did get more interest,
Yes.
we're not just having to decide on 1 spot, we'll potentially have both spots on. It'd be good.
So we'll have that on there. And if you could bring the forms along, because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
actually need to sign
yeah.
those straight away,
Yeah.
and then they can join the meeting. Anything else, Phil? Where are we up to? The date of the next meeting is the 4th of April, 7:15 in the Village Hall again. Part 2, we're going to have to ask you to do shortly, Richard, but basically discussing a resolution to exclude press and public. Now, this has caused issues in the past, having a sort of closing off Red Lane, and we've certainly seen some of that recently, some of our emails with complaints procedures and things like that. But I felt it was up to the parish, you've all seen what the email is reference. Whilst I don't think we should exclude it, I'll leave this up to the council to decide whether you do want to exclude it, whether we do think it's going to be public information, private information that we're going to discuss. I don't think it is. If we do touch on private information, we can stop the meeting and re-vote to it. However, because it's in the resolution now, I'm going to read the statement out and we'll take a vote on that as Parish Council. So Felton Parish Council may resolve to pass a resolution under section 1(2) of the Public Bodies and Missions and Meetings Act to exclude public and press due to the confidential nature of business discussed. All those in favour? All those against? Resolution is not passed, therefore we'll keep the meeting open.
Abstain.
Thanks for
And
Sorry, Chair, you
Sorry,
didn't have
abstain.
a chance to vote. I had my hand up for the resolution and you never looked at me.
I did.
You said
Okay. All those in favour of the resolution? All those against? Abstain? Thank you very much.
was that carried?
No, it was not carried. So it's not, it's open, but you still have to leave, Richard.
Because
No, I have to leave, but that's a different issue.
So if I could ask you to leave, please, Richard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you need me again?
No,
No.
that's why I put it at the end.
Being chucked now, could request for dispensation back.
Good night.
Good night.
And can somebody let me know what you decide
Yes.
before the next meeting?
So basically, as you're aware, we agreed, or it was agreed, that all the properties that it affects would be given the email that our solicitors set up, or the terms of service our solicitors set up, granting them permission to have access rights to their deeds, for which they're going to pay for. Richard has come back with his solicitor and he wants a paragraph added, which was 3. It's in paragraph 3, isn't it? And it's the second part. So basically, if you've got a copy of it, ours just said that the grantor hereby covenants with the grantee that it is not at any time in the past done or executed will only suffered anything by which.
Chair.
Or by
Chair.
yes.
Can I stop you a second? There is a change in the first paragraph as well.
There's a few changes.
Oh, is there?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Do you have another copy?
What's the change in the first paragraph?
Any more?
Sorry, I haven't got, I'll show it correct, I'll show it.
Well, if you,
No, do you mean one?
yes. Yes.
Is it?
Let me change to what?
Sure, I'm through marking this.
There's a change somewhere, I can't spot it, but I haven't marked it.
So whose copy is?
Bland,
Is this?
that's,
Are we talking new copy or?
that's new copy.
That's the new copy, because it's got that additional bit there. And that's the
They don't like term of his, her, or their successors.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's fine, that's just them putting in, because it's 2 people, they've just changed it to there. Is it not this?
Second part of 3.
So, we've changed this bit here.
Oh, right, sorry, I missed that bit there. Do you want to grant us land?
So they've just taken that out, they've taken out the wording. So in number 1, they've taken out the wording as a single private dwelling house, but not for any other purpose.
Yes.
Well, I don't think we should take it out.
No, I don't
We're
know.
granting it, well, no, we're granting it to the land, aren't we? So, if there happens to be additional buildings on that land, that's
Well,
not an issue, is it?
Chair, you've got to be careful here because they could build 2 or 3 houses. And would the lane cope with it?
But if that has access, then the whole of that land has access, all those 2 or 3 houses.
Well, you see, when no access was granted to the one house.
Yeah, but this,
We voted not to put a condition on his access.
But what I don't agree with is the extra part that says the grantor hereby acknowledges that it is aware the grantee has obtained planning permission for a further house and acknowledges this of right of way is not limited will be. Well, I'm not acknowledging, we know it's got right of way, and the fact that we're granting access to the land grants access to the land and anything on that land. I don't think we need to be.
Well, you've got to be very careful.
The covenant is still outstanding. The original covenant.
but that's not ours, that's Thanet District Council's, isn't it?
Yes, but it's a potential
It's still a covenant.
hand grenade.
Yes.
I thought that had been bought out.
No.
It has, it's been bought out.
Sure.
Well,
think it just
we haven't
doesn't
been
exist
out.
Sorry?
It just doesn't exist anymore, does it?
Correct.
It's been bought out. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist
It doesn't
anymore.
exist. It doesn't
Why,
exist.
why doesn't it exist?
The covenant was between the council, wasn't it?
Because
The Alnwick Council and the
Alnwick District Council had a covenant with them. Alnwick District Council doesn't exist.
So therefore the covenant.
Their legal responsibilities passed to Northumberland County Council. Northumberland County Council have granted planning permission for a house on that site.
So therefore.
So why would they have a covenant on it
Yeah,
saying you can't build a house?
But you see, the planning department and the legal department don't talk to each other.
I think you'll
But
find
nobody
Yeah, but
was
we
legal
can't do
department.
anything about that.
I think we
That's
all
not for
voted.
us.
sorry,
Yeah.
whether or not to uphold this covenant or not. And we actually all sat in that room and
Yes.
voted whether or not to uphold it, and we voted not to.
Yes.
So
Exactly right, but my only concern is, I don't see what is wrong with just the blanket one, because we're basically granting access to the land. I don't think
You don't need to specify
you
that
need to specify.
if the land's split or anything, it's effectively the land has
So I
access down the lane.
So I think what you're saying is to agree the change in one, which is the removal of the words for a single vehicle, for a single dwelling, but take out the change to 3, because it's not, if we take out the words single dwelling in the first part,
Yeah,
it's no longer necessary to put it in the second part.
I'd agree with that. Anybody else have anything?
Because it won't, it just says, for the enjoyment of the grantee's land, it doesn't split it or anything if you take that bit out of front about the single dwelling, so we don't need that.
Anybody else have anything to say on that? Or you have to take a vote on that?
I think that we need more time to consider this. I missed that point. I saw somebody not inserted this paragraph. I don't know why they want that paragraph in.
No, nor do I, which is why I said that.
I just think they're trying to make it watertight that if, and when he builds, which is his intention, and that's what he bought the land for in the first place. If and when he builds, he's got guaranteed access to his building. And he'll probably stop then the access for another 28?
You see, that's what I don't, if we're giving access to the land, it is access to the land.
Yeah.
It's any part of the land, regardless.
Regardless.
So I don't quite see why we need to alter what we sent, because I thought
The only
ours
thing we
was
do
very
is-
liberal.
It is, except that ours had in this, in number 1, it said, the in use of enjoyment of the grantee's land as a single private dwelling house. So if we take out that wording that refers to it being used as a single private dwelling house, there won't be a limit, it'll be a general one, and then you can, and then I think that would cover it.
And we've already voted that we've agreed for him to build the so we can't really have that bit in there, because we've already voted on and agreed on that. So I think, but we don't want to be tied down with that specific second part of paragraph 3. And I don't think there's any need for it.
I can't see any reason why we should change anything.
We do need to change that single dwelling bit, because we've already passed a resolution.
So we're not going to limit the access.
Yes.
But be careful. I think this should be passed in front of our solicitors.
Why?
Just to make sure there's nothing untoward.
But our solicitors drew it up in the first place.
Did they?
Yes.
How's
Did
this?
they have it?
Yeah. Ours was drew this up. It was Adam Douglas.
I was thinking of the one you solicitor.
Yes.
Reading this for myself, as a copy for myself, there's no problem. This has arisen because this was written for the likes of myself, where there is no confusion. We are a single private dwelling house.
Gotcha.
End of story.
Yeah.
There is the one situation, Richard is in a particular situation, he needs specific wording. That's the problem.
But if we're granting access to the land, if he put 8 houses in there, they would all still have access. And I agree with Tony, I don't want 8 houses all having access up and down the lane, but if we've granted it to the land, I don't see that we really need to then be specific about the fact that it's the second paragraph.
Is it just that he needs to make sure he's maintaining the access to his present property?
But we've also got to remember that lane is a public right of way.
Can we? Where it says, where we've got single dwelling, we can just change his.
Just take single out, make dwelling. Dwelling bracket
We could
S.
say as two private.
2. We could specify, because and that stops them building 8 houses.
But that's not
But
what
the
we,
land-
that's not what we agreed to. We agreed to give him access to his land.
Yes.
And
It was for the purpose of him building
But
this.
if he doesn't build on it, and decides to sell it, to somebody who does want to build, let's say you bought it,
Mhm.
or anyone, and you said, oh, well, actually, I don't want to build that house, I'd rather build 2 little cottages. Then you've got all of this to go through again.
Yeah.
It's not what we agreed.
Okay.
We voted whether it was allowed access or not.
In fact, if you put planning, that planning permission would have to go in for additional houses anyway, if you wanted to build.
Which is not our decision.
No, yes, but we would have a say just on the access rights, because we would say whether that
So,
lane,
so our lane.
yeah, whether that lane could support it, so we would have a comment on that. But you're right, it's NCC, so all I think is take out that word single. Take out that additional paragraph, because we don't need that. And we'll just take out the single dwelling, so we're giving access to the land.
The document that members of the public were given, is that the original document?
No, that's the new one.
Right.
So I'll just read it.
Somebody who watching you very carefully.
So here on this one here it says in between grantees land and conditional. We've got use of grantees land as a single private dwelling house.
So that's what they've put.
So they've taken this,
They've taken that out.
and then they just put and then they've added in the
But the
trees.
Right.
Has the point of view said that they have access anyway?
So you want the board to be able to.
This is the new one. It's taken out single dwelling.
The resolution I'll put for you then is we accept that we take out the word single in there because we're granting access to the land, but we don't accept the additional paragraph in section 3. We don't think there's any need for that.
So we're agreeing then change to paragraph 1
Yeah,
to remove the reference to a single dwelling house, and but we're rejecting the insertion of the additional paragraph in 3.
Can you tell me what the additional paragraph was again, please?
The additional paragraph was about the acknowledging that we are aware that they've obtained planning permission for a further house, and acknowledges this right of way is not being limited for the benefit of only one dwelling. The grantor shall not do anything to prevent use of the roadway by the property or take any steps to frustrate the same. So basically, if we don't have that reference to a single dwelling house, it sort of becomes
It's null and void.
it's repetition of the same thing, isn't it?
yes. So with those amendments we've talked about, all those in favour? Passing that on to Councillor Evans? No. All those against? And abstaining?
Abstain.